What's up guys, welcome back to another video welcome back to a new series on What If Deku Was OP Part 1. So, you guys might be wondering, what is this? Where is Avatar? Well, if you had watched the last Avatar video, I said for 300 subs I'll be doing a 3-part mini-series on what if Deku was overpowered or had overpowered capabilities. And this is that 3-part mini-series. So, let's get into it. We meet a young boy. His parents are gone. The mother didn't know what happened to the father, and the mother shortly died after giving birth to her son. Seemed like the situation was going to be dark for a boy. He had a weird eyes that anytime he seemed upset, he would cry, and things around him would become destroyed. And his eyes, every time he does this, eclipsed into a black color. Very different from his original green eyes that he has. Doctors were kind of confused by this. They had never seen a boy with this type of capabilities. But most of them passed it off as his quirk. The boy quickly became under the possession of the Hero Society. They wanted to help the boy control his quirk, as they had phrased it. The boy grew up in a closed environment. He kept his name his mother had given him before her untimely passing, which was Izuku Midoriya. Izuku's quirk, seeing how it was active ever since his birth, was diagnosed to be a very strong quirk. His quirk name was Cosmic Eyes, which allows him to create or destroy whatever he can see. This quirk alone made him a very, very scary quirk user. The Hero Association trained him perilously. They noticed his quirk would flare up based on emotions, which frightened the people who worked with him. They didn't know why they spent their time training such a monster. But they understood also that the situation had called for it. If this Thane was allowed to naturally mature, he would see that the world we live in is a very dark one and maybe even turn against humanity as a whole, which would be a very devastating issue for everyone. Deku realized his power. He liked reading books about other characters from other worlds, and loved to imagine himself in those worlds. The books were given to him by a therapist. She had an interest in the books themselves, and she gave them to Deku anytime she came to check up on him. They knew keeping the boy under positive mental health helped him control his powers and make sure no outburst would happen. Deku has had a few outbursts over the years and has killed people by accident by activating his abilities. Deku slowly became slightly afraid of his abilities, which kind of stifled his abilities and made them hard to use. Eventually, Deku more adopted a prouder personality. He wanted to become like the heroes he read in his books, so he trained hard in his cell. He never got to see the outside world. He was locked up in, what he could assume, a cage. The situation around him wasn't any different, but Deku knew from the books he read that there were other people out there rather than himself, and they all had quirks too. One specific person caught his mind. This person's name was All Might. He learned that he was a Japanese hero, which Deku kind of frowned at because he knew him being in the US, he couldn't go to Japan. Deku was kind of saddened by noticing this. One day, the therapist showed up and asked him, "So, why have you been seeing down lately?" Deku responded, "Well, I want to meet the pro hero All Might. He's a Japanese pro hero. He seemed to be a pretty cool man," Deku said in an honest tone. This shocked the therapist, because Deku had shown no interest in any other humans. He just was at base a normal kid. The therapist was like, "Well, maybe if you work harder, you might be able to see him one day." When she said this, Deku quickly grew a smile on his face, and he said, "Really? I'll work as hard as I can then." Deku began to work harder. He practiced every day to ensure his capabilities wouldn't be missed out. He got so good with his skill that he could defeat even the American pro heroes. Well, most of them. He could even defeat all the way up to the higher ranking ones. He couldn't defeat Captain Celebrity, though, which was the ranked 1 pro hero, which kind of saddened Deku, but he understood that his capabilities were not nearly as strong, so he couldn't really take out anyone that was super strong. Of course, Deku didn't know that he had already mentally set limits on himself, not allowing himself to grow stronger than a certain point. He had done this subconsciously to protect himself in case of emergencies. It wasn't like he chose to limit himself, it was more like just the natural way his body took his actions. And because of that, Deku really couldn't do much about it. Eventually, as the years go by, Deku grew older. Eventually, America and Japan had a more bonding relationship with each other now. Eventually, the therapist had brought up in one of the meetings that Izuku would love to meet All Might. Most of the personnel there thought that would be a great idea. It would also let him get out for a little bit. They were thinking about it, and Izuku, which had created a special pill based off of an ability he read inside one of his books, allowed him to listen into conversations and project his voice there. So Deku projected his voice, saying, "Can I go to UA?" Everyone in the room was shocked by hearing this voice out of nowhere. One of the men, who were in a black suit with glasses, stood up and said, "Who is there? Where are you? Come out." And Deku says, "It's me, Izuku." The man was kind of shocked. He's like, "Izuku, you can do this?" "Yeah." The man was even more surprised. He knew his ability was to create and destroy, but he hadn't had any prior contact with the kid. He didn't care, though, at it. Deku then quickly teleported into the room. He was practicing one of his abilities, which was teleportation. He had given himself a pill that allowed him to teleport, but it pained his body very much every time he did it. But thanks to Deku also taking another pill that rendered all pain in his body unfeelable, he really didn't have any weaknesses to using his teleport anymore. Deku showed up in the main room and said, "Let me go to UA. I want to meet All Might, and I want to actually interact with other people my age." The men all saw Deku and were thinking, "Shit, we really can't stop him now. If we try to stop him now, he'll just hold remorse against us, which could be an easy reason for him to turn against us in the future." The men were kind of scared about what was going on. The older man at the table, the leader of this area, took a deep sigh. He's like, Izuku. Izuku looked towards the man. He's like, yes? We will allow you to go to UA under very strict conditions. And we'll also have to talk with the UA staff themselves to see if they have room for you there. Deku's smile began to grow as it grew very big. Everyone could see his smile and were kind of shocked that the boy acted so different now. Deku shook his head up and down, and he's like, but the man at the table's like, but you have to be very good. If you even dare act up, it will not only cause problems for you, but will also cause problems for us. Deku promised that he would act very good. As the months went past, Deku got confirmation that he would be going to UA. He will be getting into Class 1A. Deku asked about the entrance exam, seeing how he had studied up on UA. The man said, there will be no need for you to take the entrance exam, seeing how you yourself are already so strong. You would be getting in based on political reasons anyway. To have you take the entrance exam is kind of outrageous. Deku just shook his head up and down and went, okay. Deku had known that UA was one of the most prestigious schools, so he was very excited when he was preparing to leave. Just then his therapist had walked in, and she took a look at Deku and she asked, are you sure you really want to go? And Deku shook his head up and down. She sighed, thinking, well, there's nothing I can do to stop you. Deku smiled at her claims. She looked towards Deku, the kid smiling at her, thinking that there's nothing she could do. She smiled back at Deku as Deku prepared on his journey to UA. The airplane trip was very weird. Multiple men in black suits took him there. When he got to the other side of the world, he had found the man he has been waiting to see, All Might. He had created something that allowed him to speak multiple different languages. An omni-language pill, as he called it. This ability alone made it easier for him to communicate with others, but being able to see All Might in person, Deku quickly ran up to him. He's like, you're All Might, right? All Might was shocked that this kid could speak Japanese pretty fluently. He had heard he had been cornered his whole entire life, but he never expected him to be this accurate at speaking Japanese. All Might responded, yes, I am All Might. And you're Izuku, right? Izuku shook his head up and down with an excited tone. Knowing the situation, he was happy. And Deku said, I'll be in your care from now on. All Might gave a look towards Deku with a smile. He looked at the other personnel there. They gave All Might a look, telling him that Deku's now in his hands, and that if anything were to happen to him, they could expect the US to heavily attack All Might and Japan. This wasn't a situation about anything else other than Izuku's safety. Deku was happily sitting in the car, so he couldn't hear the conversation going in the background. Afterwards, All Might had gone into the car with Izuku and started to drive. Izuku asked, can't you just, jump? And All Might's like, well, yeah, I could, but that wouldn't be very safe, young Midoriya. It'd cause multiple issues not only for you, but for me. It would cause issues for you too? Yes, you see, I could jump out, but then what happens if you got hurt? Deku kind of frowned at this. He figured that he couldn't really expect All Might to be as super when he was around, but he still hoped that maybe it would be different than when he was around the other personnel there. All Might saw Izuku kind of frown. He's like, "What's wrong, young Midoriya?" Deku sighed and said nothing. And he also told All Might that he would be training with the UA students no matter what All Might said. All Might could see the fire in the kid's eyes, which he was kind of shocked by. This kid had grown up in a situation without anyone around him. And Deku's like, all I ever wanted to do was to be free. And now that I am free, I'll finally work harder to achieve goals. All Might kind of smiled at the kid. Deku pulled out one of his manga and started to read it in the back of the seat. To All Might's surprise, he didn't expect the kid to be into manga. All Might wasn't a big fan of it himself, but he did have a couple spares that he could give the kid to make the kid more happy. All Might knew of the kid's quirk and knew how dangerous it could be if the kid had a sudden outburst or something. He could easily decimate an entire city with a blink of his eyes, much less an entire country if he could see it from a high enough vantage point. All Might knew that it wasn't time for him to be freaking out over Deku. He knew if Deku sensed his apprehensiveness, Deku would be very hurt and might even have a hard time trusting All Might. All Might sighed, thinking, what did he get himself into? All Might took Deku to Class 1A on the first day and told Deku to be a pretty good kid. Don't try to upset anyone. Deku shook his head up and down and he got into the classroom. No one cared to see that he entered the classroom, but Deku was pretty excited. These were other kids, his age. He knew that this could be a chance for him to make some actual friends and not people that just stand there behind a sheet of glass, looking at him and expecting his moves. Deku sat down at a desk in front of a kid with blonde hair. And he said, "Hi, my name is Izuku Midoriya." The kid scoffed at Deku and said, "Shut up, you shitty shit." Deku was kind of taken aback by this as he shook his head up and down. He's like, "Okay, I'm sorry to bother you." The action disgusted the kid in front of him even more. He couldn't believe that Deku was so subversive. Later, a blue kid came past and said, "Hello." Deku said, "Hi, my name is Izuku Midoriya, and what's yours?" The blue-haired kid responded with, "I'm Ida Tenya." "Oh, so you're from the Tenya family, correct?" Ida said, "Yes, I am, actually," with a proud smirk on his face. Deku said, "That's amazing. I'd read all about you guys." I'm Izuku Midoriya, the exchange student from Japan. From America." Ida said, "Well, hopefully you have a good time here, and tell me if you need anything," Ida said as he walked away. Deku smiled back at Ida. Deku then prepared for the class. Eventually, a man did enter the room. Deku was confused by the man, but thanks to him having researched the heroes, he knew exactly who the man was. The man was Eraserhead, the man who could erase quirks. Deku got excited, and Eraser said, "Get on your gym clothes, we're going out." Deku was kind of confused by this, and he raised his hand to ask, "Isn't there the intro ceremony? I read about it." "Oh, yeah, you're the exchange kid I was hearing about. If you have time for an entrance exam, then you have time to spend doing something else. Now get your butt out there." Deku was kind of surprised. He had never heard anyone talk to him so aggressively. But he calmed himself down, thinking that was just his general personality and how he treated everyone. Deku went out there in his gym clothes. But he kind of just stripped down in the room itself, shocking all the girls who were still present, even the guys. They were like, "What are you doing, you weird exchange kid?" Deku looked at them with a confused look on his face, and he said, "What do you mean? I'm getting changed. We were requested to get changed." Everyone looked weirdly at Deku, like he was some weirdo. And Deku explained, "Was this not common? Last time I checked, it was pretty common. I was forced to change in front of multiple scientists, so I figured it wasn't an issue." Everyone looked at Deku with a pretty weird look. Deku said, "You see, I never really got out, so I just figured this is how everyone was." Some of the kids were kind of astonished, while others felt bad for Deku's circumstances. Deku didn't even know basic living, which is kind of an issue. After they had explained that, no, it's not okay just to get changed out in the open, they took Deku to the locker room and got him changed there. Some of the girls started to see Deku more as like a puppy that needed to be cared for. A lot of guys saw him as an innocent dude who they can hang out with and trust. And the yellow-haired kid from earlier, who still hadn't given Deku his name, knew Deku as an annoying kid with a horrible rep. Afterwards, everyone out there, Aizawa said, "Katsuki Bakugo," the yellow-haired kid from earlier said, "What you want? I want you to throw this ball." "Fine then." Bakugo prepared to chuck the ball as far as he could. Once he did so, the ball reached 857 meters. Bakugo had a proud smirk on his face. Everyone else began to throw the ball. Deku walked up there, and Aizawa was like, "Oh yes, exchange student. Contain your abilities." Deku's kind of confused, and he's like, "What do you mean by contain? I don't need you to destroy everything in front of you, okay? I need you to contain your powers. If you can't, then I'll take you out right now." Deku said, "Okay." As he started to focus, he had enabled himself to gain super strength after hearing All Might. He prepared to chuck the ball as far as he could. He took a deep breath and then imagined the ability from one of his favorite characters in the book. The ability this character had was to manipulate gravity to a very heavy extent. So Deku manipulating gravity on the ball sent it flying and changed the gravity of the ball to be directly facing outwards of the atmosphere. So it just went flying outwards of the atmosphere and flew up into the sky before being dispersed into space. Deku had a proud smile on his face as he looked at the meter thing saying infinite. Aizawa was shocked by this and then went for the next. Deku got moderate to excellent scores. After using multiple of his different abilities that he gained after reading tons of manga, including the ability to stop time itself and teleport, Deku, for most of the physical challenges, didn't even need to worry about it at all. Deku ranked first in physical enhancement and quirk accession. In America, they give it by ranking systems. Deku already knew everything in his quirk was ranked S, mainly because of the severity of the power his quirk bestowed on him. Deku smiled. Some of the other girls saw that this puppy that needed to be protected was more of like a vicious lion that needed to be quartered, while the guys saw him as a manly man. And that's where we're going to leave it off, guys. If you liked it, hit the like button. Remember, check out the Discord in the description below. If you want to get contact with me there, or if you have any video ideas or anything like that, or if you would like to know in advance what ifs are coming out next, or what ifs are maybe on the chopping block, what ifs are about to be put on hold for a little bit, then go check out the Discord. We can chat, we can have fun, and until next time, goodbye.